Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everyone. We are so excited to be back with you here today on this Thursday, Adam. It's a Thursday morning. We've made it. You're almost through the week, but that means we are one day closer to the start of the NFL season. We are probably one day closer to your drafts, and we are here to help everyone get started with that. Dive deep. We're talking our favorite quarterbacks today. We're going through a couple sleeper tight ends. We're talking with Keith Bulluck. It's going to be a great day. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. And every day we get closer to the start of the season, and every day I'm like, should I add another draft?
Oh, you should. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who says no?
I know, but then when you start to do the waiver wire during the season, that's when you're like, oh, why did I do all these drafts?
Yeah. But it's good though. You need it. We want it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I get the next draft I have is the Greenwich Street Tavern draft on Saturday. That you'll be in as well. We'll be in the same draft. And then I have another Beat Adam Ronis League next week in the NFFC next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So those are my next two.
Did you have one yesterday?
I did. Yeah,
How'd
I had
it
one
go?
last night. It went pretty good. Picked 11.
Oh, look at you. Getting a different
Finally.
draft pick. Finally.
Yeah, I
How'd it
needed.
turn out?
I thought it went pretty well. It was definitely a little bit different. Running backs were actually flying off the board more
Really?
than usual. And look, in these type of leagues, because this is the FFWC, you just don't get any value. And you understand, and this is where knowing your league is so important. I know that you're just not going to get value there. If you think, oh, I'm going to get this guy, he's going to fall. It's not going to happen. All the guys that have been moving up, they go even higher. So you have to understand that. And your home leagues, it's different, right? We look at these ESPN ADPs. We look at people's home league drafts. And again, that's why you guys have an advantage when you listen to this channel and when you're subscribed to fantasylife.com, because, the casuals sometimes don't have time to follow everything. And, they're doing it for fun and they're showing up and they're drinking on draft day. And if you're really serious about it, you're going to put together a powerhouse team. But you can't do it in these high stakes leagues because almost everyone is sharp or at least up to date on everything. So you just don't get value. And you look and you're like, how could you take this guy there? Well, if you don't, you're not going to get him.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun though. I'm trying to put together a Beat Kendall league. That should be fun.
Yeah,
you can join it. You can join it. You want to join more leagues? Come on.
Nah, I want to give you a chance to win.
What? Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Whatever. I did auto pick in a guillotine league a couple days ago, which stunk. That's one of those leagues, though. We talk about guillotine leagues all the time, and if you guys haven't, joined a guillotine league, make sure you go to guillotineleagues.com. But that's one where if you auto pick one time, Adam, you feel very far behind because this is 18 teams.
Yeah.
And I autoed, and I'm looking at my team, and of course it was Najee Harris because it's whoever's at whoever's at the top with their ADP, and so I'm looking at it like, oh.
Can I criticize you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Why didn't you have anyone in your queue?
Yeah, I forgot.
See?
It's a rookie mistake. Mistake.
Look, and I understand you are pretty much available most of the time and you expect, when I'm on the clock, I'm going to make my pick, but you just never know. Something could happen. So just always put players in your queue, just in case. You never know what could happen. And I know you're out in Vegas, so you were probably having a good time. You were gambling and you forgot, didn't see it.
First of all, that was not it. It was a few days ago.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
so what was the excuse there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where I think I knew I was on the clock and then just forgot to make my pick, to be totally honest. It was a rookie mistake. It was crazy.
Well,
and now I have Najee Harris.
We are doing a draft together for charity. Unfortunately, every time I text you when we're up, you have been answering. So
Yes,
and you haven't taken
I know.
long. So.
Oh, yeah. No, we're good to go. I love that league, by the way. I love the team that we're putting out there. Feels good. We need a quarterback, but we'll get there.
We'll be fine. I mean, I think I looked, and I know there's probably people listening in this league, but
Don't tell them.
Yeah, we're fine. I looked. They're waiting, too. So and this is generally what I'm seeing happen in most of my leagues. I don't think it's going to happen in your typical home leagues, but usually when those first 5 quarterbacks are off the board, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, people are waiting, and it's the right move. Like, you shouldn't be rushing that next tier of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree. So that's a good team we're putting together. And it's draft season, Adam. We are fully in it. So we've got, like I said, a ton of news that we need to get through. We're talking with Keith Bulluck, which will be super fun to get his take on just Travis Hunter, some of the other fantasy questions that we have. But we have some news. We've got news that we have to go through this morning. The first one being, and this is actually a really big one, per Adam Schefter just a few minutes ago, it looks like Tampa Bay does plan to activate wide receiver Chris Godwin off the physically unable to perform list and have him on their 53-man roster to start the season, but only to begin his ramp-up process for games. So the long story short here with this report, Adam, is that they do not expect him to play. He said it is unlikely for him to play until October, as he continues to recover from the fractured ankle he suffered during Week 7 going up against the Ravens. He is expected to start practicing in Week 2, and you and I talked about this right before the show started. We said, okay, it sounds like they're going to keep him off the PUP list to start the season because guys who are on the PUP list not only miss the first 4 games of the season, but they also are unable to practice. And we haven't seen Chris Godwin out at practice, and so they probably want to make sure that he, like Adam Schefter said, make sure that he starts ramping up and getting ready for the season. But it still looks like he's not going to play until October.
Again, another lesson here, okay? Because that's what you want to do when you play this game. We never have it mastered. But just take a look at a couple of receivers that months ago people were drafting thinking, oh, yeah, they'll be ready at the beginning of the season. Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk. Now look. So you always have to temper expectations on players coming back from injuries. It doesn't always work out. Stephon Diggs is probably the outlier, right? An older receiver coming off an ACL tear that has looked really good, and that's going to happen at times. But look, this Godwin thing, at least for the last month, the signs were there, right? That this was not a good situation. And the last report I saw a few days ago, too, he wasn't even jogging. So it's real tricky right now with Godwin. I'm generally not going to draft him, but it all comes down to your league and your settings. I play in a lot of leagues where, again, 3 receivers, 2 flex, 3 receivers, 1 flex. I don't have the ability to take a player like Godwin where he's going right now and wait for him. And if you do that, then it means, okay, now you can't take risk with Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, those guys, right? You can't have too many. Now, if you play in a league where you don't have as many starting lineup spots and you have room on the bench, and you have IR, especially if you have IR spots. If you have an IR spot and Godwin falls, you can take him, put it on the IR spot, replace him, especially in a 10-team league, 12-team league, and you could wait it out, hope that he comes back. But if you don't have these IR spots and you have 5, 6 bench spots, it's really difficult to take multiple players in a situation like Godwin, maybe one. But yeah, it's just really tough. So I generally have been avoiding Godwin. I think I have him like in the high 40s at wide receiver.
Yep.
Maybe might have to put him a little lower. But at that point, when you look at the receivers, they all have some type of playing time issues or don't command a lot of targets. So I think it really comes down to your roster. Do you have IR spots? With IR spots, yeah, you can take them, put them on the IR, and replace them. If you don't, it's really difficult. Because, again, this is saying potentially October at this point. And to know going into the season you have a player that's going to miss that many games. And this is different than Rice, right? At least with Rice, I know Rice is coming off an injury, but he looks to be healthy right now. With Rice,
he's been practicing,
Yeah. So with Rice, it's how many games is the suspension? When is it going to occur? So there's a lot to sort through there, but if you get him back, he's a potential league winner. Whereas with Godwin, he's coming off an injury, a real bad injury. He's older. You don't know how he's going to respond. So it's a tough situation. And Jalen McMillan now with this neck injury, he's out at least probably half the year. To me, you can't draft him at this point, even in a league with 20 rounds. Like in my league last night, he was drafted. Like, why? You're going to cut him. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to wait. You will have injuries early in the year, bye week issues. He's going to be cut. You can't wait half the year for a guy to come back. So, but again, Emeka Egbuka just moves up.
Yeah.
Right? Because to start the year, he's going to have a major role, and I don't see this guy coming off the field. Even if Godwin returns and he's fine, they use a lot of 3 wide sets, so that's a guy that's just moved up, and we've talked about it like for the last several weeks. I was getting him in a lot of drafts, and I know people were like, wow, why are you drafting him so early? And now, I didn't get him last night.
Oh, I was already going to assume you didn't get him because...
And even in our charity league, he went.
Yeah, he did.
I forgot, was it round 6?
The people know.
Yeah,
if they let him fall to us, that we were going to take him.
But I don't know. How do you view this Godwin situation? Like, can you see yourself drafting him?
No, well, the difference for me that I always want to point out is that I don't have any. I checked. I've got one ESPN league with IR spots, and it's one IR spot. So, and it's interesting, and this is why it's so important too. Today we're talking through, just best advice going into drafts and what you need to expect. But this is why it's so important, Adam, to read your league rules, because IR spots, to me, the way that my team, my league does it is that it's for injured players. I'm curious because I've seen some people say that they could get Jordan Addison, that they can get Rashee Rice and put them in that IR spot because of the suspension.
So does ESPN allow that? I don't know. I don't play on there.
I saw one person say it, and I was like, that's, to me, I didn't think you could do that, to be honest, unless
I don't think you should be able to.
But to me, I stopped drafting Chris Godwin. It was better earlier in the season, in the off season, right? Because he got paid. You expected him to be ready for the season, right? And so I said, okay, I'll start, throwing a few dart throws, right? Not necessarily someone that I was targeting, but if you felt to me, I said, all right, I like Chris Godwin. But now with this, October, hoping to ramp him up, hoping to get him, we have to remember that he has not practiced. Right? You just said that they were excited for him to be jogging. And so my thing is that I would rather, if I'm taking a risk somewhere, and if you have an IR spot, it's different. Then you can, sure, take Chris Godwin. I'd rather probably have between Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, if you have the IR spot, Adam, probably take Chris Godwin, because it seems like he's more than likely to play earlier than Brandon Ayuk. From all the news that we've gotten with him, it's either week 5, week 10. They really don't have a timeline for Ayuk. So I'm not all that to say, I'm not drafting him. It looks like Sleeper allows suspended players on IR, but you have to set it up yourself.
Oh, so I wonder, okay, because
I wonder if someone...
So I'm in 2 Sleeper leagues. Actually, our Flex League is on there. We're in different Flex Leagues, but the Flex League does have IR spots, just so you know.
Yeah, but not for... Yes. But for suspended players?
I'm not sure. I'd have to double check that. I know so in my home league, we do have IR spots, but I tell them the players got to be hurt. No personal situation, personal leave. Nope. Suspended players. Nope. Like, to me, they should not be on there. You need to decide. It's a strategy thing.
Yes.
You need to decide. Do you want to hold a suspended player for that long? It's an IR spot, injured reserve. Player has to be hurt. And commissioners, if you do have access, that's my opinion. You guys want to put suspended players on the list? That's all up to you.
That's why I think it makes it interesting, because I did get a message like that, and I obviously didn't dig enough to see like what platform or anything, but there obviously I just got the note that you're able to do that. So you're right, it does make strategies different, because with Jordan Addison, we know it's 3 games. We're still waiting on Rashee Rice, but they're still, both of those guys are still being drafted. I know Jordan Addison went out yesterday with a little bit of an injury. Haven't seen an update yet, but yeah, Chris Godwin, is he good?
Yeah.
He's back. He's good to go. Yeah, Chris Godwin, though, again, not someone that I've been targeting, but I also don't have IR spots in most of my leagues, and I would rather, go for the Mike Evans, the Emeka Egbukas. At some point, it was a Jalen McMillan, later round picks, but now you said it. I'm probably, with the timeline that they gave us for him, I'm probably not going to be drafting Jalen McMillan. It's really Emeka Egbuka to the moon, and that's if you're willing to pay up for him.
Yeah, and again, he's buried on a lot of platforms, but you have to understand that people are paying attention, and he's moving way up. So you got to throw those ADPs out the window and understand that you're going to have to take him probably round 6 or 7, maybe round 5. Again, depends on who you're playing with. But yeah, he's a player that has just moved up. It's just all broke well for him in this preseason. So there are people who probably did really early drafts that really got a bargain on him, because he is set up. He's set up to have a really great start to the season.
I wish I wrote down where he was going in early underdog drafts, like right after the draft, because there was a point where, and we weren't wrong. This was not the best landing spot for him.
No.
If we were talking about a player to immediately go in and make a difference on their team, but like you said, everything is just kind of broken right. Now, we don't want injuries, so we're not trying to say that, but with McMillan, with Chris Godwin looking like he is not going to, obviously, he's not going to be on PUP. That was the news that we got this morning, but he's not looking like he's going to be able to play until October. That just sets everything up for Emeka Egbuka. So again, it was one of those situations where earlier in the offseason, it was like, we'll draft him, but you'll have to be patient. And now it's one of those things, just like Omarion Hampton, where, we say, okay, draft him, you didn't have to wait long for Amari and Hampton. We always figured that that would be a split backfield, but now both of those guys look like they're going to get significant work just week one on.
Yeah, I think you were right. Initially, with the Tampa Bay reaction, of course, you're going to say, yeah, not a great landing spot. But as the offseason has progressed and training camp started, if you kind of read into it, you're like, I don't know about this Godwin situation. That's when you should have at least said, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here. And then, of course, as we've gone deeper into August, it's been pretty clear that Godwin is definitely behind. And then the news about Godwin and the second surgery was about, what, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
a month ago?
it was, they tried to, and it was a cleanup, but it was one of those things where we hadn't heard about it immediately when it happened.
Right. So then we find that out, and you knew that he wasn't practicing yet. You're like, oh, okay, that's when you should have said, all right, time to move Egbuka up. And again, if you're taken in the first round, the team, especially when you looked at their receiver depth chart, and I understood it, though, because Evans, 32, Godwin's older, coming off an injury. Yeah, you have McMillan, but if you believe in that talent and you have some older players, he is the future. And maybe immediately we said, well, there might not be the target share we want this year. But, of course, things happen, and they took him 19th overall. That should tell you the story. It's the same thing I said last year about Brock Bowers, when a lot of people were like, well, I don't know, he's a rookie. When team takes you that early, they clearly are enamored with you, and they have big plans for you.
Exactly. So again, Chris Godwin, it looks like when you hear this news, he is not going to start the year on the physically unable to perform list. Could have him on there, and they will have him on their 53-man roster to start the season. But just remember, if you are listening, if you are looking at drafting Chris Godwin, that does not mean he's playing in September. Adam Schefter actually has already said that it is unlikely he plays until October because he's still recovering from that fractured ankle injury that he suffered. So we'll have to watch it. But if you see him not on the PUP list, just know that you're going to be getting zeros at least for September, and we'll see how the ramp up goes, Adam, because you just never know with some of these guys. Setbacks happen all the time, and that's where you just have to be. We want to expect the worst, hope for the best, but you have to make sure that when you're drafting this weekend, over the next couple of weeks, that you just have guys in place that you're comfortable, starting. If anything goes wrong in this recovery for Chris Godwin, that you're good if he isn't able to make it back right away. So that was big news today here, Adam. We're going to continue going through all the news that we've heard over the last 24 hours, but I want to make sure we're going through our favorite quarterback picks. We have gone through running backs, late round sleepers that we like. We've gone through potential wide receiver breakouts this week. So now it is time to talk quarterbacks, some of our favorite picks that we've gotten. We're going to do that here coming up next. Oh, we absolutely have you covered right here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on this Thursday. Got the big draft today too, Adam. I'm excited to talk about it with you tomorrow. It should be fun. Should be difficult. I'm excited.
Yeah. Do you know where you're picking?
I've heard a rumor.
Oh,
and if this rumor is true, I'm going to be the happiest person here. There's a rumor going around from one person that I'm pick 6 today.
Okay.
Which is great. I like it. It's better than 12. It's better than 11. It's better than 10. So I'll take it.
Yeah. I think if you're going to do multiple drafts like we do, you want to just have different spots, because you wind up with a similar team if you are picking in the same spot. I mean, of course, you can vary it, but sometimes it's just the way the board falls. But yeah, you just want to have a little diversity. You don't want to have the same players in every team, at least for me. So I was glad to pick at 11 last night, because it's not something that I've had in my redraft leagues. My redraft leagues have been like top 5 almost every pick. Yeah. I mean, I have 3 in the GST this weekend. I think I had 3 in the Flex League. I had 5 in the Host League. So one a little bit different. I have 9 in my Home League too.
That's nice. That's a good one.
I have not had the number 1 pick in any draft though this year yet. Have you?
No, actually, I don't count underdog. I just think that's different. But I haven't had the one. So the Jamar Chase shares, I'm kind of jealous.
I would like
a little nervous about it.
I would like to get at least one. So hopefully in some of the upcoming drafts, maybe I can get a number one to have Jamar Chase on the team.
It would be nice. But let's talk about quarterbacks for us. And, not only how we go about quarterbacks, this has been a year where, it's been interesting. I was talking on some panels yesterday, and there were similar conversations going around where, one, people said that they actually do really like the back half, picking at the back half of the draft this season, just because some of the players that they like, especially on the 1-2 turn, and then in the third round, they like some of the guys going a little bit later where you don't have to, pick between a Tyreek Hill kind of situation, some of the other receivers there. And so that was interesting. And then the other thing that we've talked about, Adam, is that this year we're more than willing than years before to, potentially get that elite quarterback. But I want to make sure we go, we've talked about these elite quarterbacks. I want to know if you had I don't even know if I want to say favorite, because it just depends on who falls to you. But out of the five, right, you've got Joe Burrow, you've got Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels. Out of the five of those guys, if you have been taking one of the elite quarterbacks, and of course there's tier breaks there, I get that. So some of those guys are more dual threat than the others, but who have you been walking out with the most? Because I looked at my exposure yesterday night, and I've actually had the most Joe Burrow out of that range. And I think it's because Joe Burrow is the one that falls, not necessarily falls, but he's the last one in that tier where people say, you know what, I'm going to take the first four guys here with, including Jalen Hurts, and then Joe Burrow's kind of right there. And then there's the massive tier break, I think, between Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, those guys that go in there. So who have you walked away with the most out of those five?
I haven't been getting a lot. I do have some Lamar Jackson in best ball, and I keep telling myself that I am absolutely open to taking one of these quarterbacks, especially there comes a point where you're like, I don't really feel great about any of these players on the board. Let me just take the elite quarterback, and I'm set. I don't have to worry about a second quarterback. And in leagues with 16 roster spots, I would definitely not take a second quarterback. If I have 20, I might, maybe, but it would be like round 17, 18, 19. It's not going to be around 10, 11. Again, that makes no sense. I can't. That's when I'm looking at a draft board, I look at roster construction. And if you take one of those elite quarterbacks and you take another one around 9, 10, and 11, like, you're wasting a roster spot. I'm sorry, you are. Yes. You could tell me, oh, well, what if he gets hurt? You can't play the game like that, right? You made your investment in a top tier quarterback. You don't need to invest heavily in a second quarterback. I keep selling myself, I'm willing to take these guys. But when I'm on the board, I keep pushing it. Even last night, Joe Burrow. Now, again, this is the FFWC. You start 3 receivers and 2 flex spots, and this is where knowing your league is important. The quarterbacks get pushed way down the board. Yep. You usually don't see a quarterback go until round 3 or 4. So Joe Burrow went 6'9" last night. 6'9". Jaden Daniels 6'5". And I passed on them in round 6. I was tempted, and I probably should have pulled the trigger. But I just know that people wait on quarterbacks. So you know what rounds I got my quarterbacks in?
Tell me.
Round 13 and round 16. Yeah. So, but I do think it absolutely makes sense to take these elite quarterbacks. Now, in your home league, they're going to go earlier. We went over using our ADP tool on fantasylife.com. Again, a very valuable tool. Use promo code SXM20 to get 20% off. You see Josh Allen going in the second round, Lamar Jackson going in the second round of some of these platforms. I wouldn't do that. But it does get to a point, round 4, round 5, if they're going to fall, that they're better than a lot of the options on the board. And I'm open to taking them. And I think I have to jump in and get one of these guys, because if they're going to fall to the 4th, 5th round, they're absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so it's one of those things too where sometimes, we say it and it just doesn't happen for us, but we have been way more open than in years past. But in years past, like last season, Adam, and this is what I've told people, is that you and I and a lot of, especially Fantasy Life, a lot of fantasy analysts were pounding the table for Jaden Daniels. And it was one of those things where, if you can wait and get a talent like Jaden Daniels last season, we were saying there's no reason he should be going outside the top 10. There was some points early in the offseason where he was going QB 12. And we just said, you know what? Wait in your drafts. We're way more than comfortable, and take him as your first quarterback. And this season, we don't have one of those. There are guys that can be, guys that obviously outperform their ADPs, really push past it. But there's not one that I think that, and we could be wrong on this, maybe there is one that's really just going to give us a top 3 QB performance. But from right now, the skill sets are way different than what we saw in Jaden Daniels. So I think that's why, when you and I talk about some of our favorite later round quarterbacks, I do want to bring up Drake May's been one that we've liked to draft here this season. And we've written about him. A lot of people know that, but Drake Maye, when you look at his rookie season, right, 2,276 yards, rush for 421, pass for 15 touchdowns, had 10 interceptions. But the one thing with Maye here is that I do think, even if people don't like Stephon Diggs, that was an upgrade in the receiving room. And I do like that Vrabel's in there now. I know that they went out and got Travion Henderson as well, so he could be a good pass catcher too. But I'm looking at Drake Maye, and he's still one of those guys where if I do miss out, let's say the top 5, and I don't necessarily want to get a Mahomes, a Baker Mayfield, a Kyler Murray, he's definitely one that I've been comfortable saying, you know what, I'm just going to try Drake Maye because I do think that there is rushing upside there and that he could, perform better as a passer this season as well.
Yeah, and he typically is outside the top 12, I will say. In my beat out of Ronis League last night, Drake Maye was the 8th quarterback off the board. So
wow.
People are onto him.
8?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, look,
I like it.
It's not crazy. Look, if you're that high on him, and I've said this numerous times, when you talk about the quarterbacks from like 8 to 16, it varies so much. You can go in a draft room and you'll see, like I alluded to last night, Drake Maye 8. You'll see another draft where he goes 15. Kyler Murray can go QB 8. He can go QB 16. Same with Dak Prescott. Same with Brock Purdy. Justin Fields. Those guys vary. It depends on what draft room you're in and what people's preferences are. And I do think it is that close, which is why if I don't get that elite quarterback, I'm like pretty cool with a lot of those guys in that area. It kind of just depends, okay, what point do I want to jump and get one? Who is the preference? But I do agree. I think Drake Maye is in a really good spot. They really didn't design any runs for him last year. He didn't start the entire season. He had over 400 rushing yards, and he's got an upgrade in weapons. Diggs is healthy. He's a veteran receiver. He's going to get open, and he's going to help Drake Maye. You got Kyle Williams, who they brought in, who might not be the starter immediately, but you'll see him get involved. Demario Douglas, very solid PPR receiver. He's going to catch 80, 85 passes. And then you got Travion Henderson out of the backfield to bring the explosive plays. They just didn't have any speed last year, and now they have some speed, a veteran receiver in Diggs. So, yeah, it's setting up well for Drake Maye this year. So you could understand why some people are really optimistic and taking him a little bit earlier than you would expect in some drafts.
QB8. If that's where you have them, that's where you're going to take them. You know what I mean? That's what rankings are for, tiers, everything like that. We feel the same way about Caleb Williams as well. It just feels like Caleb Williams, Adam, is one of those guys where, again, we said this last season. We said he has all the tools, it feels like, to be able to succeed. And we know that it didn't really necessarily work out last season. It feels even better going into 2025, right? They go out, they get Luther Burden. They go out, they get Colston Loveland. They get a brand new head coach in Ben Johnson, who everyone in the fantasy community was excited about. I think everyone just in the NFL world was excited about, because you say this is an automatic upgrade for what he can bring to this offense. So Caleb Williams, again, it's one of those where sometimes in the back of my mind, Adam, I think, wow, what happens if he really doesn't take that step forward? But all the tools are there, right? He's got the load of weapons. The offensive line was also upgraded. Ben Johnson being there makes us more excited. So you can see it, and I don't think we ever got really a discount with Caleb Williams going into this season, because everyone really was in on the bounce back campaign from him. But he is also another one. I actually don't have as much as I thought, but he's another quarterback where if you're waiting a little bit, I've been way more than comfortable going out and taking him as well.
Yeah, so in that draft last night, Caleb Williams was QB 18 off the board.
What?
So he fell. I'm not
you didn't
sure.
Take him?
No, I didn't. But he looked really good in that last preseason game. It was against backups though, but the decision making, there's been questions about him in practice where processing too slow, but they're going to throw a lot at him in practice, because you want to see him get through those tough times. So It could be that's the one thing though, it could be a slow start for him, right? It's a new offense, learning the scheme. They do open against the Vikings, so that's a tough matchup. Then they're on the road against Detroit. Then they get the Cowboys, so at home, maybe that's where he can go off, and then Vegas. So, but the first two divisional games could be tough. So it could be a slow start for him. But yeah, I would still want to have another quarterback with him just in case it doesn't work out. And hopefully we'll see early whether he can get the job done.
Where does that start for you? I saw a question like that a couple days ago, because you said it at the beginning of this segment. You know, if you take some of the especially the top 5 elite guys, you don't necessarily need to take that second quarterback because you can definitely get some better value, some better players on your roster. Where does that end for you? Is it Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, then you're taking a second quarterback, or does it just depend?
Yeah, probably. Again, if I have only 16 roster spots, I'm probably going to go with one, knowing that there should be decent options on waivers, and all those teams who draft their 2 quarterbacks, they wind up cutting the second one. I'm telling you right now, it happens all the time, and I don't know why people continue to draft that second quarterback, because you're going to realize, especially when the bye weeks hit, an injury strike, I don't have enough room. I can't roster 2 quarterbacks. You got to make the decision and pick one.
So again, quarterback tiers and all of our rankings you can find at fantasylife.com. So make sure you go and check those out. Be like Adam, print them out if you need to, cross them off with a pen. I might actually do that today, Adam, so I can't even make fun of you for it, because I just need some pen and paper sometimes. That's what we have to do. But go to fantasylife.com, check out those rankings. Use that code, like Adam said, SXM20 gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription over there. We're going to continue on, and I'm really excited for this, Adam, because we get to talk with Keith Bulluck and interview him about just his fantasy football takes for 2025 and what he expects for the season as well. We're going to do that here coming up next. So excited to have everyone back here with us. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And we get to talk to the one and only Keith Bulluck right here on the show. You guys might know him, former Pro Bowl linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. But we know you, Keith, because you love fantasy football. That might be something that people don't know. You've contributed to The Athletic, and we're excited to have you on. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Fantasy football is one of those phenomenons that I really knew nothing about as a player. And then when I retired, I went to the sports bar that all my friends would used to go to in New York City to watch Titans games and other games. And before kickoff, everybody's on their phone and like I'm like, yo, what is going on? And then that's how I got introduced to fantasy football, because everybody was adjusting their rosters last minute and things of that nature. And then I met the great Nando DeFino, and he got me into it a little bit more, all the way in, I should say. So, yeah, here we are now.
That's awesome. And here we are. We get to ask you. We've got so many fantasy questions that we want to ask you. And shout out to Nando, because he'll get anyone that he can into fantasy football. So we are we are so excited to have you here. I'm curious to start things off, because we've not had a guy coming out like Travis Hunter, like where we're looking at him. He's set up to play both sides of the ball. So I'm curious, with your time in the NFL, and when you look at someone like Travis Hunter, what do you see as his main challenge in producing for fantasy football? Because we know looks like he's going to play maybe more on offense than defense, but again, we just haven't really seen something like this, at least for me.
Yeah, I think Travis Hunter will be a great player for the Jacksonville Jaguars respectively, but for fantasy football teams, I don't know how much production they'll get out of him, because I see him, especially in his first year, obviously he'll play both sides of the ball. That's what they're speaking about. But I see him as more of a possession receiver, someone that will get maybe 3 catches a game, maybe with 6 to 7 targets. And for fantasy owners, that's not a high clip. That's not really putting up much points for you. If you love Travis Hunter as a player and he's your favorite player, I think those people will benefit because they get to follow him on a weekly basis. But those real fantasy players in leagues where points matter, Travis Hunter, it wouldn't be a guy for me.
Who's a player that you can't leave your drafts without this season?
You know what? I'm gonna say Bijan Rondo. Bijan Robinson. I don't know where Rondo came from. Bijan Robinson, just because I see him as a dynamic player. Kind of like a Saquon Barkley-esque. Similar quickness, similar speed. When I played guys that could take it to the house. Right now, if 2 guys miss and they're gone, those are scary guys. So I see the way the Atlanta Falcons offense is shaping up. They have a lot of weapons out there. Michael Penix Jr. is going into his second year where he got to play last year and get comfortable. And I don't put much on the preseason, but I know the Titans practiced against them. And I know that their Atlanta Falcons offense was looking really well those days.
Again, talking with Keith Bulluck, we are so excited to be talking and breaking down some fantasy with you. I have to ask, what are your expectations for this Tennessee Titans team? Because Adam and I have talked about it with, Cam Ward coming in. We love drafting also Calvin Ridley. We've talked about, the running backs here, even though Tajay Spears is a little bit banged up heading into the season. Like, what do you actually believe could be the ceiling for this team this season?
I think the ceiling for them, honestly, is to get over that 6-7, to get to that 6-7 win mark would be great because you have a rookie quarterback. Your defense, you're still trying to put pieces in. They're still questionable at linebacker. They don't necessarily have a playmaker at linebacker or in the secondary. So you're waiting for those pieces to emerge because obviously we say Cam Ward, but this kid just got out of college. He's not going to be able to do it himself. They've done a great job of building that offensive line to protect Cam Ward. Now you're going to have to see other people and pieces such as the tight end Chigga Conquo, the young kid out of Texas, Gunnar Helm has been getting rave reviews out of camp. But I think you can expect, and this is for fantasy owners, a pretty solid season out of Calvin Ridley just because him and Cam have been developing a rapport. And Cam knows how to play the game of football. He's a rookie, but he understands getting the ball out of his hands. He has a quick release. And look, he's going to go to his number one guy. And right now that's been Calvin Ridley. So I would expect to have Calvin Ridley to have another 1,000-yard season plus a lot of touchdowns and more yardage.
Nice.
That because we are sharing a league and we just drafted him, so we're happy to hear that. Who's a sleeper pick that you have for this year?
A sleeper, you know what? I'm gonna stay with wide receiver, and just because I don't really know who's up in New England, and Stephon Diggs has looked good in camp. Coming off ACL, he got hurt earlier in the year. I don't expect him to be, the Stephon Diggs from years ago, but I do see him being effective from the 40 and in, especially around getting targets going into the red zone, into the green zone, and maybe have a high touchdown ratio. So I don't know, for what it's worth, I can definitely see Stephon Diggs having 60 to 7 catches and upwards to 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, sorry.
Nice. Wow, I like that. I like to hear that too because we were just talking about Drake Maye. So this is perfect to have you saying all the good stuff about those guys because we expect him. Yeah,
he looks really good in camp. Coming off ACL, he looks crisp. Obviously, he has the fresh legs. He wants to get out there, improve it, and he's got the number one cheerleader in Cardi B. So you want to show out for your lady.
I love it. Again, we're talking with Keith Bulluck here, talking through some fantasy football questions. Keith, I'm curious, what we just talked about a sleeper pick for you, but I'm curious just overall for the NFL going into 2025, if you have a sleeper team, if you have a team that you've been watching in the preseason or you've seen, some of their training camps and you say, you know what, maybe not a lot of people are talking enough about this team. You really like them and you have higher expectations maybe than most for them. Do you have a team like that for 2025?
You know what? I'm gonna go with the Denver Broncos. They have a good defense. Bo Nix seemed to be able to, get his rookie legs up under him. He's a mature quarterback. He's played a lot of football. They have a veteran coach. They played good football last. So it's like a team that they're not really, I don't know if people are talking about them. I don't pay too much attention to the preseason, but they were right there last year. I kind of like them a little bit over the Washington Commanders just because I feel like, the Commanders, they played well down the stretch, won the games that they needed to win. And, we have to see how both those are two rookie quarterbacks going into their second year. So I'll go Commanders and both Broncos.
I like it.
All right, we have a coffee question here because it's actually a big topic on our show. So you're a franchise owner of Just Love Coffee Cafe in Franklin, Tennessee. We want to know, because Kendall is a huge fan of Folgers coffee. What is your thought on Folgers?
Oh,
There
no.
we go.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Keith, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You hate
cool.
it.
Look, so first and foremost, I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm a businessman, so that's kind of why I got into coffee. But since then, obviously, I've had to drink coffee, and I know about coffee and all the notes and everything. I would say continue to drink what you want, but I'm gonna send you something that I think that you might like better than Folgers. So a little care package. Straight from Colombia, Colombian blend.
Oh, nice.
So Folgers, I don't really know where they get their beans from, but yeah, I can tell you exactly.
I love that. I love that. Oh, Keith, well, I appreciate that. I will definitely drink any of that coffee. Adam, you didn't have to air that out right now.
Yeah,
we didn't right now. I know, in front of Keith. Oh my gosh.
Hey, he's giving you a better option.
I know. It's true. It's true. It's true. Well, Keith, we so appreciate you hanging out with us here today, and hopefully we get to talk some more with you during the season, but we appreciate it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, there he goes, Keith Bulluck. That is such a fun interview. So fun to get his perspective and his takes on the upcoming season. We're going to continue, Adam. We've got tips to win your fantasy football leagues, and we've got, between your league settings and knowing your league mates, we've got the tips that you need to know to dominate. We're going to do that coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here on this Thursday morning, mid-afternoon, morning. It's still morning for you.
It's still morning,
yeah,
yes.
11? No. Wow. 8,
10:55 a.m. Eastern.
There we go. Good morning. Look at you. Coffee
For you,
this morning?
It's definitely morning.
Oh, it's
I did have coffee today. I've been starting to have the coffee this
noticed.
week.
Yeah. Does it make you feel better?
It does give you more energy. It really does.
Yeah, I could have told you that. I mean, I love it,
but
though.
Here's the difference. Yeah. So a lot of people drink coffee for the caffeine. I don't. I love the taste. Like if caffeine wasn't, so bad for you to have so much in one day, I would drink coffee all day. Also, if it didn't keep me awake, I would drink it throughout the day. But since I have issues sleeping, I have to cut it off usually. I try not to drink after 2, 3 p.m.
I was going to say 2 o'clock seems like the sweet spot.
I try to. It doesn't help me sleep any better, but if I drink...
Because we have to find different ways.
If I drink coffee like after dinner, forget it. I'll be up all night. So I try to avoid it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. So we're here. Good morning, everyone. Mid-afternoon, whatever you want to call it. I did want to go through, Adam, because we're breaking down all these players. And again, we're going to continue breaking down, late round sleepers that we like, everything in between. But tips to win your fantasy football league, because there's a lot that you go through besides just drafting the right players. You get into the draft room and sometimes, things just don't go as planned. So I did want to go through, our favorite, things that we want people to know to walk away from this show with today before they go into their drafts. We've mentioned it before, but let me just say this one again. Know your league settings. So many times I see people go in and it's like, they go in with a strategy, which I know that, one of my other tips is go in with a strategy, but be prepared to abandon it pretty quickly if it doesn't go your way. But Adam, it seems so simple, but sometimes people just go into their drafts. They don't know their league settings. They don't know, what their IR spots are doing. They don't know how many flex spots. And that changes how you're drafting. That is the basis of what you think is going to happen in these drafts. So it sounds simple, but a lot of people just don't do it. And make sure you go in, especially if you're doing new leagues this season, just make sure you go through, read it all, go through the scoring and league settings and just know what you're going up against.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but there are so many people that don't do it. And I've encountered people prior to a draft where they didn't know something that I saw. So you really do have to look at the league settings, the scoring, what you start. It's very important because those little factors can help you gain an advantage. For example, if you know you have 5 IR spots, that opens it up to take a little bit more risk on those injured players at a discount, of course, and put them on the IR and then go to waivers and pick up players. So knowing the starting lineups, how many receivers, how many flex spots, is there tight end premium? So there are so many different scoring systems now that it is really important, especially when you jump into a new league, to look at the scoring and settings.
How much do you pay attention to positional runs? If you see all these running backs are going, and how does that affect sometimes your draft, depending on, it depends, Adam, obviously on what your roster looks like, but how much do you pay attention to that?
I mean, you have to be cognizant of it, but you also don't want to fall into that trap, because if one positional run is happening, that means players are falling at other positions at a value. And again, if you know the player pool well enough, then you know, hey, there are some guys that I can get later on that I feel comfortable rostering. So I never panic. That's the one key, is you can never panic and fall into that trap. And a lot of people do. They see, oh, wow, 8 running backs in a row, I have to get what? I don't look at it like that. I just look at my board and say, okay, well, I'm going to get a receiver here or a tight end that's falling at value because everyone is overvaluing one position.
And that's why it's important. We've said it over the last couple of weeks, but tiers, and it just depends on what you like. But tiers, we love tiers going more than just overall rankings. So that's something to always have in front of you. And it's going to be great. Everything's going to be great. You're going to dominate your leagues this season because you're listening to us. You're going to fantasylife.com. Using that promo code SXM20 gets you 20% off any tier 1, tier 2 subscription. Watercoolers coming up next. Oh, it is about that time. We are going through the pieces of news that you might have missed over the last 48 hours. We're going to make sure we break it down for you, know what it means for your upcoming fantasy football drafts, and just keep you in the know, because that's what we like to do here in the Water Cooler Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And as always, we want to take as many phone calls as we can during this segment as well. So make sure you are calling in if you can, 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. You can also send us a message over there on X at Valenzuela17, at Adam Ronis. But Adam, we're getting into the thick of it. This is probably the last couple of weeks where we see the most drafts happen. And so we know that you guys listening are locked in. And like I said, we want to be here to help you, starting first with the news, because that is the biggest part. So many people, Adam, go into their drafts potentially unprepared, but when you don't know, the latest news, it really does hurt you. And so you want to make sure that you're up to date on all of that, and that's why we are here to help. So let's start with Tampa Bay. We talked about this right when the show started, but want to make sure we circle back around in case people missed it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers do plan to activate wide receiver Chris Godwin, and did you see Tristan Wirfs as well off the physically unable to perform list? It remains, though, unclear whether either of them will be able to play in games in September. More specifically, let's talk about Chris Godwin here. The one thing that we mentioned at the start of the show, Adam, was that they're probably not going to put him on pup now, because when you miss the first 4 games of the season on pup, you also aren't able to practice. And so for them, they want to have Chris Godwin ramp up and be able to practice. And there have been reports from Adam Schefter and other reporters saying that they expect Godwin to potentially play in October, but definitely it sounds like not September. So that's something you need to know. You're going to be in your drafts. You're not going to see, the P next to his name, the questionable tag next to his name, but just realize it feels like, Adam, that he is not going to play in September. If everything goes right with the ramp up period, they expect him to start practicing during week 2. Then he could potentially be able to go in October.
Yeah, and it's a tough situation now to draft them, especially if you have no IR spots, because you're going into the season with a player that's going to miss time. He's coming off a pretty severe injury, and even when he returns, it could take multiple weeks for him to get back up to speed and get into form, and maybe even longer than that. So I will not be drafting him at this point. Again, I play in a lot of deeper formats too, where it's difficult. If you have IR spots, I think it's a little bit easier to take him, especially if he does fall at a discount, because you just put him in an IR spot, pick someone up off waivers. If you're in a more shallow league with smaller starting lineups and you have enough space on the bench, you could take a chance there too. But again, you're going to have bye weeks. You're going to have more injuries on your roster. And that's why it's so difficult to take a chance on players like this. And to me, you can only really do it with one. When you're talking about Rashee Rice, who could be suspended, Jordan Addison suspended 3 games, Brandon Ayuk, another guy that's not going to be ready. So you don't want to take all of those guys. Maybe you take a chance on one, but I'm generally going to just stay away from Godwin at this point. Love the player. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I tend to draft him every year. Had him last year, and it looked great. He was on pace for a career year. But it's just not the same situation this year. So I think with Godwin, he's a guy generally that I'm just not going to draft. I have him ranked, I think, in the high 40s. But maybe I have to move him down a bit. And that's where the rankings are tricky because people are like, oh, wow, he's the highest ranked player. Well, you got to look at your roster and does he fit? And that's, again, why I hate the top 200, top 300, because it doesn't help you put together a good roster. It's not just take, the highest ranked player. It's look at your roster. What do you have? Because some players are just not a fit for your roster when you're drafting. And I think that's where people make mistakes. They just kind of blindly take someone's list they respect, cross names off, take the top player off the list. And then when they come back to you and go, yeah, I went off your rankings, I'm like, well, you probably went off the overall because this is not the way to construct a roster. So with Godwin, I'm generally staying away at this point because there's just too many question marks, and you might not get him back fully healthy till week 8, week 9, and that's half the year. So it's really difficult to roster a player in that scenario.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not, again, we did expect him to start the year on PUP, but again, he is not going to. It looks like he's not going to start the year on PUP, but he will not play from the reports from Adam Schefter. It looks like he will not play in September at least. So we'll figure it out. I know we've talked a lot about Emeka Egbuka, but I did just want to talk Mike Evans here too, because while this does affect Emeka Egbuka and he is just climbing and climbing and climbing up rankings and draft boards and everything, are you in the same space with Mike Evans? He's someone that goes, pick 46. I see on ESPN. He's got 39 on Sleeper, 36 on Yahoo, 38 on CBS. So he's pretty close across the board, except for ESPN. He's pretty close across the board in terms of the ADP that we see him go at. When Chris Godwin was injured, Mike Evans also got injured, at that same time. But he averaged in games with Chris Godwin 14.3 points per game. I think the big question is he's just someone that always hits the 1,000-yard mark at him. It's always someone, he's going round 4 usually in these drafts. He's 32 years old. He's given us 14.9, 16.8, 17.5 points per game over the last 3 years. So it's really hard to argue that he is not one of, a top receiver that you can go and target. But I think more of the questions for people are, not necessarily the injuries, but the age. Are you open? Have you been drafting him this year as well?
I really haven't, but he has to move up your board right now. It's just, he's healthy right now. And I think there are concerns as he gets older. He's had hamstring issues in his career, even last year. Missed 3 games last year. The crazy part is he has not hit 80 receptions since 2018. Like, it's just not crazy. You're right. It's not a huge volume guy, but as you mentioned, 1,000 yards every single year. He has at least 11 touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 seasons. So, yeah, he slowed down a little bit, but with the way this is set up now, he's going to play a big part in this offense. And you mentioned the numbers without Godwin. So they're relying on him a lot. I mean, him and Egbuka and Bucky Irving. So that's the one thing you like about the Tampa offense is it's condensed. You know where the ball is going. So, yeah, I would think Evans moves up a little bit based on this.
I think you have to.
So, yeah, he went wide receiver 16 last night in my draft, 3rd round.
16? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, he's been consistently going in round 4.
Yeah, I think you see him move to round 3.
Do we need to be talking about Cade Otton? If we're doing all of this with everyone else, is Cade Otton someone, because this is what we always have to do. If there's injuries or if there's guys that we don't expect to come back very quickly, we say, okay, who's next up the depth charts? And I think sometimes, myself really included in this, is like we look at the shiny new toy in Emeka Egbuka. We know what Mike Evans brings, but is Cade Otton, I mean, because he averaged 16.1 points per game. He had a 23% target share over the 5-game stretch when we didn't have, this was both Godwin and Mike Evans. So that is a difference there, Adam, where both of those guys weren't on the field. We know that he was able to step up and kind of fell, he was probably someone that people, started to just say, you know what, I can stream after that. Do we need to be talking about him more?
I don't think so, because you mentioned it. It was Godwin and Evans out. And that was a stretch where he had 10, 11 targets. Then Evans came back and you started to see it decline, and you had Jalen McMillan there. So with Egbuka and Evans and even Bucky Irvin and Rachaad White out of the backfield, I don't see that happening again. It was a situation where everything broke right and they kind of were forced to go to him. I don't see that occurring again, even with Godwin out.
Got it. Well, you just, you never know. You just always have to ask. He was someone that helped people throughout that 5-week period. It was pretty nice for people that were able to pick him up.
Yeah. So if you were streaming tight ends, which is not ideal a lot of the times because you want to pick it up tight ends that just crush you. But if you were able to get him, he helped you through a nice, 3-week stretch was ridiculous.
Yes.
And then even that fourth game, 5 for 35 on 8 targets, you would take that. But then you knew, okay, time to move on because it really fell off after that.
I was gonna say he was one that you just started streaming after that if you needed to do it. But he gave you a little bit there over that stretch, 3 to 5 weeks. Next up on the water cooler, and again, I want to make sure we're taking your phone calls as well. So we are checking on that. 888-963-2682 is the phone number to call in, or you can press that new call in button on the Sirius XM app, which is really cool that you can do that now. Continuing on here, Adam, I just wanted to say that I saw a report from Rappaport yesterday that he expects the Commanders and Brian Robinson to not play. He expects him to not play for Washington in 2025. So again, this is one that we're monitoring. I saw a report just a few minutes ago from Rossini saying the Saints, Browns, and Chiefs are in search of running back additions. Whenever we hear that, whenever we know that a potential running back like Brian Robinson Jr. is on the trade block, we just always have to pay attention. You know what we're going to talk about here. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is a guy that continues to, I think he's moving so quickly up draft boards that it's not even updated. You can't even update it quick enough. So when you see our ADP tool, you're going to still see him in a range where you're like, oh, that's a really nice price. But I think once we really start getting into drafts, especially this weekend, Adam, we're going to see the difference there. But it really feels like, and I thought this was going to be maybe something where we see Brian Robinson Jr. start the season with them, and then maybe before the trade deadline, he goes. But there's many reports out there saying that they just don't even expect him to play for them to start the season.
It feels like it at this point. And yes, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt or Bill is rising up. So in my beat out of Ronis league last night, he went 6'11". So okay. But remember, you still have Austin Eckler there, catch a pass out of the backfield. Chris Rodriguez is there too. So look, for Krosky-Merritt, I feel like I probably am not getting him anymore. I've taken him in like round 18. I took him in round 13 of the Sirius XM host league. So at least I have some. And there comes a point where the price just gets too high. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it in round 6. I think it's just too high at that point.
Where do you have him in your rankings right now?
I think in the 30, like low 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to move him. I have him in the low 40s, and it still doesn't feel good enough. With everything with all the news that we're getting, like Brian Robinson isn't going to be there. Other teams are shopping. It just feels like I probably need to move him up even more. But it's just, it's one of those things where you could get priced out. I want to try and get him so badly today. I really want to try. But a little Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Emeka Egbuka, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, let me see. Where did Egbuka go? I think it was the 5th round.
Okay.
5-1.
Wow.
Yeah. So see, okay, here's an example of how.
Jeez.
So Tet McMillan went 3-1.
Okay.
Pearsall went 4-12, and Egbuka went 5-1.
Wow.
So people are aggressive here, and you have to know that when you go into your format. Now, in your home league, those guys are not going there, right? You can get them later on, but that's why it's important to know your competition, who you're drafting with, because in these high-stakes leagues, people push players up. They don't care. They don't care about ADP, and you have to know that going in. So
isn't it crazy how things change? Imagine us saying Ricky Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka, or Ted. Well, Ted for me has always been up there, but Emeka Egbuka, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, these guys, even weeks ago, Adam, it like a month ago, that's how quickly things change.
Yeah, so I took those 3 players in the Flex League draft in New York, first Saturday in August, and obviously much cheaper prices. I think Tet was late 4th round, Egbuka was 7th or 8th round, Pearsall was like 7th or 8th, like they were back to back. So yeah, and again, that's why I do think if you are a volume drafter, you want to get some drafts done in late July, early August. Again, if that's like in these high stakes leagues. I know home leagues are going to do most of their drafts closer to the start of the season, but there are a lot of people listening that play in 10 leagues, and I do think you want to get some a little early because you see the shift in values and how players move up, and you get some really good bargains early on. And I've seen in the past some of my top leagues were drafted in early August.
Yeah, it's where, like you said, you get the value. So if you are able to draft early like that, it really does make a huge difference. Obviously, from the month that we just talked about, now we're talking about Ricky Pearsall moving up, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. All these things change so quickly. We're gonna go out now to the phone lines. So again, if you've got a question, make sure you give us a call, 888-963-2682. Let's go out to Sean in Texas. Sean, what do you got for us?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. I was just curious going into these drafts, how early is it to target one of the big five quarterbacks? Because, you know, you don't want to play the streaming game, but if you draft one of them too early, then you could, you know, hurt your depth. So I'm just kind of curious, is it the third, fourth round too early, or is that about where you want to target them?
Yeah, no, I personally think it's a great question. Appreciate you calling in because Adam, we've talked about it. We've said this season, especially, we are way more open to taking the elite quarterbacks. You know, there's obviously tier breaks with the top five, you know, between people thinking about Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. But I don't think that, you know, round 3 is too early to take a quarterback. It just depends on the build of your team.
I think it also depends on where you're drafting, who you're drafting with. So if it's a home league, you know the tendencies of your league mates, and that should give you an idea. You know, you could look at previous draft boards and go, okay, where are they going? But yeah, I don't think third, fourth round is actually fine. There comes a point when you are on the clock and you go, I really don't like any receivers, running backs, or tight ends here. So if that's the point, now for me, I probably would want more fourth, fifth round, but I understand in a lot of home leagues that's just not going to happen. The quarterbacks get pushed up there. So it really comes down to knowing your opponents, your league mates, and knowing the history there. But yeah, I think anywhere from rounds 3 to 5. I can't do it in the second.
I can't either. That's why I don't have any. I think that's a little
early.
I don't have any Josh. I don't have any Lamar.
Yeah. Also, too, it also depends on what you start, your roster. So if you only start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and 1 flex, you can push the quarterback up because that becomes a more important position in the shallow format. You want to be dominant. I think it pushes the tight ends up too, especially since if you're, you know, listening to us, you're on Fantasy Life, you're going to get a lot of good depth for the bench anyway. So if injuries strike, you'll have plenty of players to push up.
Yeah, and it's a great point. It really, and that's why, again, it's so important. We said it just a couple segments ago, and it might seem easy, but that's why it's so important when you're going to do the mock drafts or anything at fantasylife.com. Know your league settings. Know how many flex spots you're walking in with, and because it does make a huge difference. That's when Adam, our draft on CBS, how many flex spots do we have?
One. Yeah, it's a shallow format. I'm not used to it. It's only 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 flex spot, and a tight end and a quarterback, so it's very
But it makes a
shallow.
huge difference.
It does.
With quarterbacks, because then you say, you know what, I do want, you know, a guy that you could, it's a set it and forget it. You know, you get that Joe Burrow, maybe in the 4th, 5th round, depending on, again, who you're drafting with. That's who I've taken the most out of the top 5, because like you said, I haven't necessarily second round. I like to either, you know, make sure I get my running back there or another elite receiver. Just depends on, again, who you're drafting with and everything like that. But yeah, sometimes getting those set it and forget it quarterbacks, Adam, is really nice. Really nice.
It is. Look, you have to pay a premium for them, so there is a cost. But again, if you look back, now there's always surprises every year. Like, would we be surprised, though, if one of those top 5 quarterbacks has a really bad year? We probably would. I mean, Lamar Jackson does it every year. Josh Allen does it every year. Burrow, we know, is going to have to put up a lot of passes to account for this putrid defense. Jaden Daniels, second year, but look at the floor with the rushing. Now, you do want to see Terry McLaurin back, so maybe that's the guy you're a little concerned about. I'm not, but if you're looking at anyone in that top 5 that doesn't finish, maybe it's him. And then Jalen Hurts, I think the passing yards have to go up because they're not going to be able to be as dominant. And we know what he does on the ground. I mean, look at these rushing touchdowns the last 3 years, 13, 15, and 14.
Yep.
At least 600 rushing yards. Like, you know, there's already a high floor. They're going to continue to do the tush push. It has worked. So unless those guys get injured, it's really difficult to see them failing. It's just a question of, do you want to pay that premium with a 3rd, 4th, maybe if you're lucky, 5th round pick? And again, on certain formats, you can do it.
Appreciate you calling in, Sean. We're going to continue to try and take as many phone calls as we can throughout the show. Phone number 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We're going to continue on. We've got some players that we have to talk about here. Late round fantasy targets with potential big upside. We're going to give you those names here coming up next. The Cowboys still ruining your weekend, Adam? Already? I know the Mets are. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. As I've said, thank goodness for fantasy sports and betting, because my teams now, I will say this, so they have America's Team documentary on Netflix right now.
Yes, they
I
do.
watched the first 3 episodes, and boy, I'm just gonna have to relive those years because they were tremendous. And just seeing my guys, Emmitt Smith, who I got to meet in New Orleans, that was great. Michael Irvin, who I have yet to meet, and that was my favorite Cowboy from the 90s.
You haven't met him?
No, man, that's the guy, man. Like, I just loved his energy, his passion, the intensity he brought, and you could see it too, and just the belief. So, and Jimmy Johnson, what a hell of a coach.
Yep.
Definitely was very ruthless. You see that, which we already knew, but yeah, it got to the point where the Cowboys beat San Francisco in that NFC Championship game in '92. So, yeah, that's what I have. Memories of those '90s to live off, because right now it's not a good time to be a Cowboys fan.
Get out the VHS tapes. Rewatch them. It's great. Sorry.
But I have had people text me who are not Cowboys fans saying it's great, that they love it. So I'm through 3 episodes.
I will say, shockingly, because I'm in Vegas right now. That I think we said that, or people know that. But if you don't, like, I'm here for the Circa Women's Series and play FFWC. And it's just, again, if you haven't come to Circa, it's amazing. But there's been chatter, like good chatter here about the Cowboys. Does that make you feel any better?
For what, fantasy and offense? That I can
yes,
see. But
and win. What's their win total at right now?
I thought I saw it the other day at 7.5.
Yes, that's the other thing that people here have been. It's always fun to come to these things because you start to hear things. You and I talk to each other every single day for a couple hours, and then sometimes I text you. You don't text me back. It's fine.
That is not true at all. I always answer. Jeez.
I know, but yeah, the win total. Good, at least on offense. Good potential things happening. We got to figure out Micah Parsons. That's one of the big things. But there's been good chatter, at least.
Yeah, I think the vibes with Parsons aren't good, but the offense, yeah. I mean, when you look at fantasy, we're seeing CeeDee Lamb go early, Pickens, and Dak Prescott, depending on the draft. Like, you see Dak sometimes go in the top 10. I think their schedule is pretty tough as well. They have a stretch late in the year that I don't know how they're going to get through it. It's home to Philly, home to Kansas City, at Detroit, home to Minnesota. Like, that is a tough stretch. And then, of course, they open the year at Philly on the road. That's not going to be easy. So we'll see. I mean, they're a team that, when Dak's healthy, they've been pretty good, but defense has some issues for sure. So I don't know. But yeah, I think it's 7.5 is their win total, which is usually Dallas gets inflated because they know people love to bet on them, right? So there's certain teams that you're just not going to get a good number because they're a popular team that everyone bets on. The Yankees, the Lakers. Sometimes you look at their numbers, you're like, why is it? Well, the books have to put it. They know that's a popular team that's going to get bet. But then again, there's a lot of people that hate Dallas too.
Yeah, there are. We talked about that too. They have the 11th hardest strength of schedule this season. I don't know how much you look into that, but we've talked about the Giants.
It changes so much. There's so many teams that there's always going to be a handful of teams that we thought were terrible that are good, and a handful of teams that we thought were going to be very good that aren't. So it's something to look at, but I wouldn't take it as gospel. Like, people always looking at weeks 15 to 17. And a lot of times it doesn't pan out, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. It's just it's kind of interesting talking with people, seeing where they're at over here and what their expectations are for some different teams. I want to go through our expectations for later round fantasy targets with the potential to have big upside. And again, I tried to find names all across the board with different ADPs. I did want to start with, because I've seen a few questions over the past week about the Green Bay Packers. We've talked about Jordan Love, but more so Matthew Golden and our expectations, because things did start to change when we saw that, hey, Jaden Reed looks like he's got some sort of foot injury. He was walking around one of the preseason games with a boot. Whenever we see something like that, we say, okay, Hopefully he's able to go. If he's not ready to go for week one, who's the next man up? You always want to have that next man up mentality. So the ADPs for Matthew Golden across the board, again, depending on where you are, ESPN, he's going pick 98, Sleeper 95, 117 on Yahoo, 112 on CBS. And then if you're still drafting on Underdog, he goes at pick 68. So when we talk about a player that has potential big upside, if we do expect Jordan Love to kind of come back, which I do. If we talked about Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, we've had this conversation before, but I really do think that we're going to get a better version of Jordan Love because he was injured the first game of the season. He was dealing with an injury the whole season. They were able to get, the first wide receiver that they've drafted in the first round since 2002. So what are your expectations with Matthew Golden? Do you think he's someone that, as a later round pick has big upside?
So it really depends on where you're drafting as far as late round. But yeah, I'm definitely open to taking him. I won't say he's a target, but we rarely see Green Bay spend a first round pick on a wide receiver. We've been waiting for a long time and it hasn't happened. And they do have some other issues. Some receivers are banged up right now. He is healthy. So I don't think he's going to be that true number one. I don't think you're ever going to see that with the way Green Bay is constructed now, but I think there's a good chance he leads this team in targets. You also have Kraft as well in the mix. Reed again with that injury. Romeo Dobbs. You got all this depth there. So I like Golden the most, though. If you're saying of all the wide receivers, who would I draft first? It would be Golden.
I agree. Again, before I was sprinkling between both, and then we saw the foot injury with the boot, and I said, you know what? Feels like I need to have a little bit more Golden going into the season. I will say, and you know this, but I do love Tucker Kraft going into this year too. Because if they're going to, if we see more injuries to this wide receiver group, I do think Tucker Kraft is going to be able to knock himself inside the top 10 again, like we saw last season. But Jordan Love, he is just one season removed from the 4,100 yards, and he had 30 plus touchdowns. Like that's where I think we get back closer to that. And I know that that's probably not a hot take, but he was injured last season, right? It was just one of those things where Josh Jacobs comes out and he says, we need an alpha wide receiver one. The workload that he had was also insane. So I do like, Golden. Again, when I say later round, I was trying to find some guys with big upside, but he, depending on where you draft, like I said, he's a little bit cheaper on CBS and Yahoo, but I still think he's one that could really, really pay off that ADP. I want to ask you the same question, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, though. Are you still drafting Juwan Jennings, or is he someone that is now off your board? Because not only are we looking at a potential injury with him, but also the contract situation. There's offensive players that we have to talk about for fantasy because Micah Parsons still out there, but he's still waiting on a contract, or he wanted a contract, said, if I don't get this, I want to be traded. And then obviously went down with an injury as well. So between Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, what do you think the upside is?
Right now it's easy Pearsall. And like I said, he's going way earlier. So that price has dramatically gone up. They need Jennings right now. They are really banged up in the wide receiver core. I don't know what's going on out there, but so many guys are hurt. They did make a trade for Skyy Moore. Not a big deal. But, yeah, so with Jennings, I haven't been drafting him lately. You have to push him down the rankings. They do need him, though. Like, I'm surprised.
That's what is there any part of you that thinks that he's trying not to get hurt in training camp? Or, again, I'm trying not to tinfoil hat everything here, but they do need Juwan Jennings. If he was able to go back out there, that's why I'm thinking to myself, I haven't taken him in a while, but I'm not opposed to. I'm not just going to stop drafting him. There's this little part of me that thinks that if he's able to get back out there for Juwan Jennings, they are going to need him. They're really banged up.
They really are, and he was really good last year too when he got that opportunity. So
I guess it just depends on where he goes. But that's
remember again, they have DeMarcus Robinson, who's going to miss the first 3 games of the year due to a suspension. Yeah. Jacob Cowing got hurt. Jordan Watkins has a high ankle sprain. I mean, they are.
I don't know what's going on over there. You said that. I don't know what's going on over there. But I don't know.
Even Russell Gage, who they have, is now hurt with a sprained MCL. So, like, just every receiver they have has just gone down. So, they really do need Jennings back.
Yes. He goes pick. I mean, this is crazy, though. I still can't believe that why Ricky Pearsall hasn't gone up draft boards, or
He had, well, I get, well, I'm
he's still
just
pick
saying.
117 on ESPN.
Yeah, well, that ESPN, we've talked about that. It's
93
ridiculous.
on CBS,
Well,
94 on Sleeper.
he went wide receiver 26 last night.
Okay, that'll do it.
Yeah, again, in sharp rooms, he's moved up, but in some of these other leagues, he's not. But I would not, again, if you're in a sharp room, that's not going to happen. You got to move these guys up if you want
Oh
them.
wait, yeah. What pick did you say he went with you?
412, wide receiver 26 off the board.
Wow. Yeah, but I mean, it feels like he might be the only healthy receiver that they have to start the season.
Yeah.
That's really where they're trending towards.
Well, it's not only that. He was a first-round pick. They were very high on him. He obviously got shot last season before the year. He had hamstring injuries and other issues throughout the season. And then the last 2 weeks, he looked, really good. And I know it's only 2 games, but again, he's got the pedigree and he's got the opportunity now. So the last 2 weeks of the season, he had 8 for 141 and a touchdown on 10 targets, and then 6 for 69 on 8 targets with a touchdown. So, yeah, he's clearly one of the biggest risers this offseason.
As he should be, though, to be totally honest. Like you were already kind of excited to draft him. A couple months ago, I was just, going between both of them, Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and just making sure I had, a little bit of both. Almost like the situation that we just talked about with the Packers. But now when you look at it, and we just don't know with Jennings, and when we saw that full-time role with Ricky Pearsall over the last 2 games of the year, 23.8 points per game, 22% target share. So it's Ricky Pearsall you can't wait on, and George Kittle to the moon, feels like, Adam. I just, if they're going, the injuries are just a huge thing right now with the San Francisco 49ers wide receivers. And so if we've said it for months, if we can imagine George Kittle with 110 plus targets, not to say that that's going to happen, but it's not happened for him. So even 100 targets, give me 100 targets for George Kittle. I like that.
Yeah, look, if we ever get to 120, he's going to finish tight end 1. I mean, he was tight end 1 in points per game last year in PPR formats. The reason why he tends to go behind Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, they just get so many more targets. But Kittle, on a per play basis and points per game, he could finish as the tight end 1. And it is set up for him to smash. You always do have to worry with injuries with him. He does get banged up. He'll miss some games. He's a very physical player, but right now, again, the 49ers, you look at it, it's McCaffrey, Kittle, and Pearsall. Those 3 should get a ton of touches in this offense right now because the depth is clearly lacking. So maybe finally we see Kittle unleashed into a primary role, because a lot of times he's the 3rd guy in the offense, sometimes 4 in years past. But especially with Deebo Samuel gone, like the splits without Deebo, he definitely saw an uptick. So, yeah, that's why you feel good about Kittle right now, and he's moving up. He actually went in, was it around 4-8 last night?
Wow.
Yeah, 4-8. But again, the tight end's goal, McBride went 4-6.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that feels like a fall.
It is. Again, I think with the extra flex, the receivers get pushed up. Again, that's knowing the format. You're not going to... McBride generally goes 3rd round in most leagues. Yeah.
And Kittle, depending on where you're drafting again, like he's going in the 3rd. I was very comfortable taking him in the 4th, though, because it's just last season we were getting him in the 5th. So it's just... Let me ask you one more thing here with the 49ers, because of all these injuries, we always talk about, okay, who's next man up on the depth chart? Where does this put you with Brock Purdy? Because he is also someone that we talk about. This is a proven commodity kind of quarterback, not necessarily, at least for me, someone that I target in my drafts, because again, at that point, he's in this range where I would rather just wait for some of the other quarterbacks that we've talked about before, like a Caleb Williams, like a Drake Maye. He has a QB9, QB6 finish over the last 2 seasons. And when we look at him pass for 258, 268 yards per game over the last 2 years, where does this put where does this put him in your rankings for 2025?
I would think that the lack of depth hurts him a little bit, but at the same time, if he does get Jennings back, it's still a solid offense. So he's in that tier of quarterbacks where I actually don't have him a lot. I think I have him in some early best balls, but I really don't. It feels like someone usually takes him a little bit earlier, but that's that cluster of quarterbacks that are pretty similar. He went as the QB 10 in my draft last night.
That feels about right. That's usually the range.
He's anywhere from
he's
10 to
inside
14.
the top 10. Yeah, I think in our consensus rankings, he's right. He's given us 2 top 10 finishes for his career.
Yeah, there's not as much depth, though, there now. But at the same time, I
No.
think he showed last year. A lot of people said he was a product of the offense and the pieces around him. I thought he played pretty well considering everything that went wrong with the team last year and all the injuries that they dealt with.
No, I do too. I'm looking at the floor ceiling, and again, this will be updated a little bit closer to the season as well. But the ceiling is 22.7 points per game. The floor sitting at 14.6. But like we said, I mean, with all the injuries that happened last season, you thought that maybe he would come back down a little bit, but was still able to give you. I look at him as a consistent guy. You know what you get out of him, and he has been consistent throughout the season. So
Right, so you're not going to get a top 5 finish.
No,
you know
but again, a consistent guy.
Yeah,
You know
and I do think
give you 10.
Christian McCaffrey there staying healthy really helps them because they didn't get much in the passing game from their running backs last year. And if McCaffrey's healthy, he's going to catch 60, 70, 80 passes. So that will really help Purdy's numbers too.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you on that one. Let's continue on here. Let's go through some tight end sleepers. We've talked about the big 3. You know us talking about George Kittle, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. Guys that you can wait on, though. Sleeper tight ends that could potentially smash through their ADP. We're going to give you those names here coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here. Appreciate everyone hanging out and bringing the good vibes on this Thursday. Little news update, Adam. Got to talk about it, which again, if you're drafting, I'm drafting today. This affects my drafts. Jalen Wright looks like is being reported that he is being walked off with a limp. Omar Kelly said that it does not look good. He's a reporter out there for the Miami Dolphins. He said, not saying season ending, but this isn't a quote, I'll bounce back kind of limp and walk. So we'll see what happens. We have to keep an eye on that, but that is not good for a backfield that we're saying, we've been talking about. Obviously, Achane is the guy there. He is going to be that workhorse. But if he ever were to go down with an injury, who would be the next guy up? It was between Jalen Wright. We've been talking about Ollie Gordon as well. But you walked out with Ollie Gordon yesterday, so we don't like injuries, but you picked the right guy yesterday.
Round 15 last night.
Nice.
Again, those late picks matter. A lot of times people check out. They matter. You never know. And of course, with running backs, it's all about opportunity, and sometimes injuries happen. And this is why I always say, if you're doing a draft, even now, right, waivers, usually you have a waiver wire period before the start of the season. I want as many lottery tickets at the running back position, and this is the prime example why. Now, we don't know. Jalen Wright could be fine. We heard there was panic yesterday. Oh, Lamar Jackson holding his wrist. Turns out he was stepped on. He's fine. So be careful at this point. We don't know what it is. It could be nothing, but we already know that, Devon Achane is dealing with a calf issue, and maybe he misses week 1, maybe he misses week 2. And Gordon's had a good camp, good preseason, and we haven't really been hearing good things for Jalen Wright. And he had that series in the last preseason game near the goal line where he was stopped. So, yeah, Ollie Gordon's looked pretty good, so he becomes a pick to consider in the later rounds. But let's see what happens with Jalen Wright first before we jump to conclusions. Yeah,
but just keep it in mind, just in case. Again, Jalen Wright walked off the practice field slowly with an apparent injury to. It looks like it was a limp, so a leg injury. We'll see, and hopefully
it could have been a
later.
diarrhea limp too.
Would you stop? What are we doing?
It's possible. You never know.
What are we doing? Brian Robinson, you are a Miami Dolphin. We can't forget that. That didn't happen. I was just going to throw it out there.
They probably are in the mix for a running back at this point.
Yeah, well, now it's like how many teams now? We heard the Chiefs are open to one. The Saints are open to one. The Browns are open to a running back per Diana Rossini today. I don't know what's going on. This is important, though, for my draft today.
It is.
Gordon, last round pick. Could be fun.
I don't think it'll be last round. Do you know how many rounds the draft is?
I don't actually. I
Okay.
need to lock in. After this show, I'm going to lock in. And you guys can give me a follow at KValenzuela17 at Adam Ronis. And we're obviously going to be talking about it tomorrow. But I'm at Circa for the Women's League. And we get to, you didn't show up though. We invited you down here. You said, nah.
Yeah.
I'd rather stay in New York.
No, it's not that. Of course,
Whatever.
we wouldn't want to go
You didn't
to
want
Vegas.
to hang out?
There's a lot of other things that go into it. But yeah, I kind of wish I was there.
Yeah, because we could have done Radio Row tomorrow.
We could have. I'm assuming then you're going home right after then tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I need to lock in for GST.
Yeah.
I was gonna go
morning.
on Saturday, but then I forgot that the draft is 11 Eastern, right?
Yes. So
11?
11 a.m. Eastern Saturday.
Ugh,
So for
you're going to
you,
make me get
8
up
a.m.
early?
You get up early every day.
Whatever. Well, I like the option to sleep in, maybe, but now I don't get that.
You got Sunday to sleep in.
Perfect. All right. Again, just that news with Jalen Wright. We're going to continue to monitor that. Hopefully, we get a good update from them after practice. But again, he walked off the training camp facility today, looking like he was injured. So keep an eye on that one. We're going to go through those tight end sleepers here coming up next. Listen up, guys. By the way, don't forget that your league mates want you distracted. They want you out of snacks, they want you out of drinks, and they want you running to the store to get all of that so they can draft your favorite sleeper. But you're not going to give them that satisfaction. You're going to call in GoPuff, who brings you snacks, drinks, and everyday essentials delivered in as fast as 15 minutes. 60% off your first order could be yours with code FANTASYLIFE60. Again, that's FANTASYLIFE60 for 60% off your first order with GoPuff. Some of the tight ends here, Adam. You wanna break them down? Talk about some sleeper tight ends that we like here, and the potential that they could have to outperform their ADP. Let's talk Brenton Strange, since you took him, since you love the Jacksonville Jaguars so much. You took like 5 of them. What was it? 4 of them yesterday?
I did 5. Yeah, it wasn't the plan. It just worked
on.
out that way. Now, look, I did take Strange, but he wasn't like the target. He really fell. So he was tight end 21 off the board. So. Wow. Yeah, I was looking for a second tight end in round 17, so I took Strange there. And, there could be an opportunity for him to become a bigger piece of the offense when you look at their receiving core. But, again, he wasn't a target for me. I have him.
You can just say you don't like him.
No. I drafted him, so you can't draft a player you don't like.
True.
But he was my highest ranked tight end left on the board at that time. I would have preferred a couple other ones, but yeah, I think there is an opportunity there. I think maybe some people are more optimistic on him than me. He was a late second round pick in 2023. And now with the way the depth chart has gone, he is the guy. And we did see him. He played well last year when Evan Ingram was out for a stretch. So there is potential there. I don't think you'll see a breakout season though, because usually you need a guy that's going to score 8-9 touchdowns or maybe be the top 2 passing target in his offense at tight end. That's the way I kind of look at it, and I don't see him being in the top 2. So it's going to come down to touchdowns for him. Can he get 7-8 touchdowns, maybe catch 50 passes? So I wouldn't want him as my tight end 1, that is for sure, but I took him as my second tight end. And again, I already had Trevor Lawrence and some other pieces. So hey, it is a large field tournament. So might as well play into the stack since it was already there.
Yeah, might as well. You had Travis Hunter.
All in on Jacksonville. Let's go.
You had BTJ. You get Trevor Lawrence. You might as well.
Nothing's
going to
go wrong.
No, nothing's going to go wrong. You've got every single thing you need there to succeed. But I mean, really, it could happen. And like you said, Brenton Strange. When we talk about these sleeper tight ends, not usually guys that we want as our first and only tight ends, but second ones that you can pick up and grab. I think Jacksonville, with their new head coach in Liam Cohen, generally we have a balanced offense from him. And you do have a lead tight end. Tight end position hasn't necessarily been a high priority in those offenses. We talked about him a few segments ago where he did have a really nice stretch of games, but that also came with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans out. So that's the thing you have to look at over there when you're looking at the potential with Brenton Strange. Let me do one more here. Hunter Henry. Where are you at with Hunter Henry? What are your expectations? Because if we like Drake Maye, the thing is, like, we tried to correlate a little bit. We've said, hey, Stephon Diggs, we talked with Keith Bulluck today. He said that he likes Stephon Diggs coming out. But Hunter Henry does have the potential to be the number 2 option in this Patriots passing attack. What do you think?
I don't know about number 2, but I am intrigued by him. Last year he had 66 receptions, 97 targets. Only 2 touchdowns, though. But you have Diggs now, Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams, Henderson out of the backfield. So there is more competition. They had no depth at wide receiver last year. But I still think if you do think the offense can be a lot better and improved, I don't mind Henry as a second tight end. I would have taken him if he was there. He went, I think, 1 round earlier. Yeah. If he would have made it back, I would have taken him.
Yeah, I like Hunter Henry. But you don't think maybe number 2? You think Kyle Williams or maybe a Demario Douglas?
I think Douglas and Diggs are going to be the top 2.
Yeah, I want Kyle Williams to succeed so bad, but I've started drafting.
It's
going to
take some time with him. He might not start right away. Yeah.
No, you'll have to be patient. But Demario Douglas has had it sounds like a really good camp from everything that there's been reports about. So Hunter Henry, again, another good one. Again, we're not saying walk away with these guys as your one and only tight ends, but these guys could potentially have bigger roles in 2025, and that's what we look for these tight ends. We appreciate everyone hanging out with us here today. Again, use that code SXM20, gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus Tier 1 or Tier 2 subscription. We've got drafts today. We'll see you same time here tomorrow.